Shut up and sit down.
It's where the big boys play. SICW.
Welcome to Square Read Podcast, everybody, episode 101. Tonight we have a quick response to a viewer. Wouldn't say really a fan because they subscribe and then deleted after they made some comments, which I could have. And for a couple days, I was going to do the keyboard warrior thing like he did, but decided against it because, well, even though I'm not fully mature yet, I'm at least more mature than that.
Just a little bit, not much, a little bit.
A little bit. I'm getting there. I'll be 13 years old here in a couple years. On here, so
Well, before you start off with that, let's just say welcome everyone to the Squared Ring Podcast. We got Nasty Nate over there in the ball cap. We got the backwards ball cap, Bobby D, and of course, my name is the Big Texan.
That's the
and no ball cap, but ball.
Yeah, just thanks for tossing it out there. Just no ball cap is bald. We're gonna just have a few short things to talk about. Maybe one long version. We're gonna talk about some Russians today. Some Nikolai Volkov and Nikita and Ivan and talk about those.
You said Russians. I know you're a fan of the White Russians. I was going there.
I'm definitely a fan of the White Russians. Very good.
Yes, it is a very good drink. It's my Christmas drink. I normally drink that every Christmas Eve. But we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk a little WWE. We're going to talk about a little bit of Brian Knobb's situation. And I guess we'll start off with what Nate has to talk about.
Yep. And as far as who said it, I don't remember his name. It's not even important and doesn't live rent-free in our heads. But from time to time, we will post some matches from the CFA, which is the Chicago Film Archives, and what they do. They're a nonprofit that uses volunteers to catalog videos that go back as far as they can find of all types: film, commercials, TV, wrestling, sport events that are either in the public domain or they just found, like at the Chicago Amphitheater. And we had a viewer claim that we were just taking CFA's footage and posting it and just putting our watermark on it, but we needed to make commentary or do something to change it because we're just stealing. In fact, we are not just stealing because we have licensing agreements with the people that own the full catalogs of the major wrestlers that are in the CFA videos that were a part of the NWA at the time at the Chicago Amphitheater that they did rest. A full year before we posted our first video from CFA, we had made contact with them. We did our due diligence. We do have the right to show it. And we still, because they're a nonprofit, we still give props to them to tell people to go to their site and to go to their website. We do show it in the description. And we purposely did not remove their watermark so people can go to them and donate money to them so they can restore and archive this footage, because a big thing that us here on the podcast, and I imagine others in SICW, but I don't know that for sure, you two would, we want to preserve old wrestling so that people can watch it, learn, and be entertained by it. And if the CFA is going to do the same thing we're doing, or we're doing the same thing they are because they were doing it before us, more the merrier. We're not taking anything from them. So for anybody who says, well, we need to change it, no, we don't. We have the rights to show it as it is by the copyright holders. We have an agreement with the copyright holder to show it. The NWA constantly was at the Chicago Amphitheater, and that's where these matches come from NWA events, which fall under the copyright of the original holders, not the CFA. They're an archivist. They do not own the copyright to what we have shown. The only one that we have on our page that is not covered with us having a licensing for is one in Canada, which was a request by a viewer in Canada. And no, I did not ask. I just posted it because I thought it'd be funny because nobody cares anyway.
Oh,
It's the 51st state, and it was just a local, regional
51st
thing.
state.
Yeah, 51st state.
Oh,
I know because that bugs them. I don't really give a crap. I'm not political about that crap anyway. I just think it's funny.
yeah.
So anyway, and we had talked about doing commentary on it, but any type of commentary we would do would be a poor, very poor representation of the people who originally did it. They are far better at it than we are still. So we want to present it in the way it was archived and the way it was broadcasted. So that's why we did it. Anybody who has any questions that want to do it in a respectful manner, just let us know. If you want to be accusatory and try to impugn our character and what we do, I have a nice rounded ass you can kiss.
Hmm. All right. Well, moving on from that topic, let's just throw out the gate about Brian Knobs. Brian Knobs is back in the hospital. He went into the hospital after our last week's podcast, so we weren't able to talk about him. But Brian Knobs, one half of the Nasty Boys, great guy. He's wrestled everywhere from AWA to WWE to WCW. I mean, and they've been champions in just about every promotion they've been in. Me and Bobby had the pleasure of seeing him, if not last year, it was the year before at the CAC, Cauliflower Alley Club.
Which there's features on our page.
Yep, and I tell you, him and his partner put on one hell of an induction speech that just kept going on, and we were all there for it because it was great. He didn't care. He talked about how he didn't have any social media, so whatever he said, if it got reposted, that it wasn't going to come back to him anyway because he wasn't going to be able to see it. So it was very cool. I don't know if we posted it his video on here or on my homepage, but just research it, and it's great. But anyway, so he went into the hospital last week. They're not saying for what. I'm just assuming probably something to do with diabetes or circulation to his foot, because the big concern right now is he might lose one of his he might lose a foot. So they're doing a GoFundMe. I think we have. Yeah, so there's actually two things going on. Of course, you can go onto his Facebook. There's a GoFundMe out there right now. I'm sure Nate will have it linked on our video. But also, yeah, there we go. There's his GoFundMe from his Facebook. It's kind of sad to see him in the hospital. He's been frequently in the hospital. Almost died a few years ago. But yeah, so the other cool thing is one of his friends and a guy that Herb Simmons has brought in a couple times through SICW, Buff Bagwell. He's doing a live stream on his YouTube channel on March 13th at 7 p.m. It's going to go for a few hours. I think it ends at 10 p.m. Now, this is all Eastern Standard Time. But a lot of legends are going to hop on to this live stream. So you got the likes of Sting, DDP, Goldberg, of course, Buff himself, and a few other legends. And they're going to tell some road stories, some hilarious stories about Brian, just to try to help get that GoFundMe up and rising. So far, I think we looked, he's got like $7,000 raised. So hopefully he can get some more, because God knows medical bills are expensive.
He needs 30,000.
He needs 30,000. So,
and if you want to see
halfway there.
If you want to see that speech, it looks like it is just on yours, Jim the Big Texan Hoffarth on YouTube. If you search up Nasty Boys speech CAC, first thing that pops up.
Wow, cool. And that's awesome. That's the first thing that pops up. But I tell you, Brian Knobs, he's done a lot for the business. Like I said, he's worked everywhere. AWA champion, WWF champion, WCW champion. They've been around the block. I know they worked in Japan. I'm not too sure if they held any titles out there. I didn't really research that to that degree. I just wanted to throw his GoFundMe out there so everyone can try to raise some money for him. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, man, he's really good friends with Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan has got some money. So I thought maybe Hogan could help out too.
No
saying.
titles in Japan.
No.
No titles in Japan.
Mm. But when it comes to the tag teams, you got Legion of Doom, you got the Steiner Brothers, you got Demolition, and then you got the Nasty Boys. And even I'll throw the Dudley Boys in there too, because those are the guys that everywhere they went, they became champions. So they're one hell of a tag team. So yes, if you got some extra funds, please help him out. Yeah, very good cause. I don't know what all is involved into this foot thing, but he needs all the money he can spare. But all right, moving on. I think I sent you a picture of Scott Steiner. There we go, Scott Steiner. He is making not the rounds, but he did a podcast over the weekend, and I'm going to give props to Chris Van Vliet, I think VLIET, the Elite.
Chris Van Vliet.
Yeah, so he's probably like the number one interviewer for wrestling. He talks about how he kind of just walked into the whole situation, but like all the wrestlers trust him, all the companies trust him, so he talks to everyone: TNA, WWE, AEW, and this weekend he had Scott Steiner on the podcast, and it's a very good podcast. I recommend everyone listen to it because if anyone knows Scott Steiner, he speaks his mind, and he spoke it. He spoke it on everyone from Ric Flair to Hulk Hogan. And what's making the headlines right now is his beef with Hulk Hogan. Now, everyone knows that Hulk Hogan was my idol growing up. I've got so many cool things in my collection with Hulk Hogan. And I know I just mentioned him about helping out Brian Knobbs, just because I feel that, hey, if you got a buddy that's losing his foot and can use your help and you got some money, you should help him out. But this podcast went a little the opposite direction. He talked about how, legends, not legends, but legends now, but higher ups in companies would bury other talents that were trying to move up through a system. And he talked about how, him and his brother Rick was one of the greatest tag teams. But when it came time to let Rick kind of retire a little bit, take an easier schedule, Scott revamped his look to what he looks like in this picture, and became Big Papa Pump. And he talked about his first match coming back. Now, the Steiners were always what you would call a babyface tag team. But when the Steiner brothers broke up and and Scott actually fought Rick, beat Rick, and then took a break. And when he came back, like I said, he had a new look and outlook on life. And he talks about how Hulk Hogan is actually the one that caused him to lose his debut match with his new look and his new persona and everything. And he really digs into his grievances with Hulk Hogan about how back in WCW, like they would have a lineup of who's wrestling who, and they kind of knew how it was going to go, but they had to wait until Hulk Hogan showed up to the building because somehow he had enough pull that if he didn't think your match was going to be good enough, he had the power to cut your match, which is crazy to me. You know, no wrestler should have the power to pull other wrestlers' matches off the cards, but evidently back then Hogan had the strut, and he talks about the whole booing of Hulk Hogan in WWE recently when he came out to endorse his American beer, and how he got booed so loud that he couldn't even talk to the crowd, you know. But he uses some strong words in this interview that just makes it very interesting to watch. I mean, I'm gonna quote him when I say he says that Hulk Hogan is a motherfucker. And there was one other part that he talked
Yeah, but
about.
we all
Hogan.
knew that.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's a piece of shit. Is what he. You know, it's kind of hard to hear that kind of stuff because you know it's a yin yang because you idolize him as a kid growing up. Still kind of idolize him to this day for what he's done with the business and everything. But he talks about how Hogan was videotaped using the N word, and how Scotty was good friends with Macho Man, and if you know the rift between Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, which is crazy because it seemed on camera like they were the best of friends, but off of camera, they were like total enemies. And so Scott just really rips into Hogan. So it is a good watch. I know it's weird for a podcast group to recommend watching another podcast, but Chris did an excellent interview there, and I think he's going to get the credit for it because I'm sure we're going to be talking about this Scott Steiner interview for a few weeks with everything he said. Monday Night Raw. I really can only tell you one match that I really liked. You know, there was a few other matches that happened. I know Rey Mysterio fought. It was Rey. Huh?
It was New Day versus LWO tornado tag match.
And you know, it was a good match. And then there was
So that mysterious masked man showed up.
huh?
Until that mysterious masked man showed up.
Yeah, a mysterious masked man showed up,
Made.
and
Well, I mean,
caused Rey
just because
Mysterio.
it's an American flag on his mask doesn't mean he was American made.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We saw in the backstage interview that that guy was arrested while Chad Gable was on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm still saying American made.
But that was a pretty good match. Ladies had a match on the card too. Raquel versus
Bailey.
Well, you have to, versus Bailey, and I talked about it last week. I think it was last week about the Freebird rule on how Dom should be part of that. Well, he interfered in that match, you know, too. So they literally should just go ahead and make him part of the ladies tag team champions or something like that, and just
Yeah, he interfered great. He took one hit and fell down. That's a great.
well, you know, but
I mean,
definitely
I'm all for women's matches, but my God, that was a snooze fest and a half. The best women's match there was Io smacking Rhea. I mean, that was more exciting than that match. That match was so slow and slow developing.
That's because those women aren't that good at workers.
Yeah.
they actually said that interview spot with Ripley and the champion that that made her. What's the champion's name again?
Io Sky.
Elo Sky. You know,
Io.
she is
Io.
a champion, but a lot of people was just saying it was a fluke that she won it. But with her, taking the time back to slap both of them, that actually put her name in the forefront. I don't know how it's going to work out. We kind of talked about this last week. Who was the third person in that? It was Ripley and
Yeah.
I don't have that one written down.
it was the girl with the very long hair.
Oh,
Black girl,
Bianca?
very long. Huh?
Bianca Belair.
Bianca. So everyone's kind of talking that even though Bianca is going to have the title match at WrestleMania, that after WrestleMania, that it's going to be her and Ripley, pretty much going at it. Now I don't know if that means that they're going to throw a third, throw Ripley into that title match, or Bianca's going to win it, and Leo Sky was just a transitional champion, just to get to that. But I don't know. I don't think there was a reason for her to be a transitional champion, just for them two to go at it. Because with Rhea having the belt, she could have gone against Bianca at any given time. So I don't know, but we'll see where that
Io
goes.
Sky is a former champion before this too, and she's a better wrestler than both of them.
Bobby said that. Just remember that when you guys start complaining in the comment section. Bobby D is.
Bring it on.
Anyway,
It.
hands down, the best match was the main event, which I've said it before. We get this match a lot. Seth versus CM Punk, or CM Punk versus another one in that five guy group, whether it be Seth or I can't think of the names what I'm actually talking about. But Seth versus Punk. The only difference, it was a steel cage match, which I think made it so much better. The only thing I disliked about the match is they went throughout the match with, I'm going to do this move, and then, like, if Seth did a move, CM Punk did the same move right after it. And then it got down to even their finishers. If Seth did his finisher, CM Punk was going to kick out. And then, CM Punk did his, Seth was going to kick out. And then they switched to using the other one's finisher. So Seth did the go to sleep. And then CM Punk did Seth's finisher. So the curb stomp. So it almost made it, if they would have done it just once, I think it would have been great. But since they kept repeating it, it was almost like you knew it was coming.
Well, they're not the only two that did all those freaking moves. There was a third one that repeated them all again.
I say CBS Sports agrees with you. They rated that match an A match. I was bored with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a match that we've seen repeatedly so many times. The only thing difference was they added a cage match around it.
And they paused a lot more and had to take more breaks.
True. So the highlight for me on this match was that Roman Reigns came out, helped Seth win, kind of, because then he beat the crap out of Seth. And we haven't seen Roman on TV a lot. He's been taking a lot of breaks here lately. After the Survivor Series, he took a break. So it was nice to have him back in the fold. So now there's 6 people that they can actually rotate with, on the matches. But it was just a surprise. But even though the camera view, or even just the camera, the crowd was so loud that you knew someone was coming down way before they even could make it down to the ring. The crowd made it obvious that something was happening, But for what it was the best match on Raw.
I think the best moment on Raw was Logan Paul being booed. I know you're a Logan Paul fanboy, but I still don't like him, and I still don't like him in the WWE. That's just me.
I think those two can have a good match at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I totally skipped over that. I forgot about it. AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. Um, I say out of all the celebrities that's ever been in a match or interfered in a match, Logan Paul has definitely shown his worth.
What about David Arquette?
Again, he's the only one that's shown his worth. He's an athlete. David Arquette wasn't an athlete, should have never won the belt. And a lot of people consider that being the spot that actually ruined WCW and was the start of the downfall. I think there was a lot of moments that created the downfall, but that was definitely one of them, I would have to admit. But Logan Paul, he's an athlete. He shows what he can do. Him and Ricochet put on a hell of a fucking match. And well, for what they can do, they are spots, and yes, they try to make a highlight reel. And to give him credit, he's got a highlight reel.
Yeah, they're very good acrobats.
He needs to put on some tights and just let it go.
I say they could join the Flying Graysons really well.
I know you just want to see him fall, Bobby. Like the Flying Golindas when that happened to them.
Well, like I stated before, even Michael Cole says that WWE is not a wrestling company anymore. So,
And you know what's funny about that is when I was watching this stuff earlier, that quote you said that you repeated just now was going through my head through most of the matches. It's not wrestling, it's just entertainment.
right.
Well, I didn't find much of either one in the Jey Uso versus Grayson Waller match.
See, I'm still on a lot of people have the same thought that I do. Just because a wrestler has been there for a long time and can show that he can be a tag team champion and can show that he's a decent wrestler, doesn't mean he's a great wrestler and doesn't mean he deserves to be the heavyweight champion. Not that he's won it yet, because that's the match at WrestleMania, him and Gunther. But to me, he's more about that entrance and that entertainment spot of an entrance.
I would say he's got the kids involved, just like Cena. Like I see him as the next Cena. That's just like the big merchandise seller, and he will print money, just not with his ring work.
Yeah. Now, speaking
Like
of
the
Cena,
Ultimate Warrior, all entrance, and then he's gassed when he gets in.
well, all right. So, the Ultimate Warrior had a little bit more than I think than he does. Ultimate Warrior had the look, and he had the fantasy, I guess, behind him, because his stories that he would tell during his promos, all the kids would go crazy for that, and the adults would be like, "What the hell did he just say?" Because no one knew what he said.
Did he just say we're traveling through the stars and galaxies to faraway moons?
Yeah. But yeah, he definitely had the look. He definitely had the energy and the athleticism. Man, if I can talk. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't see him as not saying he's a bad dude at all. I mean, I personally like him for what he is. I just don't see him as that high caliber like a John Cena or The Rock, Stone Cold, type of material. But speaking of John Cena, Cody Rhodes came out on Raw, and he came out on SmackDown last Friday and gave the speech about that they jumped him, and how he was so shocked at John Cena, and John Cena is now, gone heel and gone rogue and everything. And the WWE put off a thing today, or it might have been last night, about how John Cena's heel turn is even bigger than Hulk Hogan's heel turn in WCW for the NWO. And so that was like a hot topic on discussion boards today. I
could see
personally,
it.
go ahead.
Said I could see it, but Hulk Hogan had a greater following at the time when he did it. I mean, it was more shocking, even though Cena was shocking. Although a year prior, Cena said he was going to turn heel, but I don't think Hogan ever said he was going to turn heel or hinted for it before he did.
No, and there was, depending on what interview you find, there was an interview that Hogan had pitched it to Vince before he left WWF at the time. Back when because Vince was telling Hogan, "Hey, you're getting older. We kind of used you up," and so it was almost like a mutual split, and Hogan pitched it then, but he never did. And he had a couple stints where he came back, fought Yokozuna, won the belt again, dropped it again to someone else. And then eventually he wound up in WCW, where they paraded him around as, Mr. America, Mr. Babyface. So out in the public, no one ever knew that he had at one time had offered to go heel. So in all the public's eyes, or the fans' eyes, that was never heard of, never a possibility. He was always going to be the clean-cut babyface, say your prayers, drink your milk, take your vitamins type of guy. Cena started out as a heel. He had that thugonomics thing going on. And eventually the fans turned him baby. And even when he got turned, still a lot of chants in every match was Cena sucks. And he still gets it to this day.
I say they were doing the Cena sucks, let's go Cena during the promo.
Yeah. So to me, Hogan's was a much bigger thing. I mean, it revolutionized wrestling. I mean,
Yeah,
it got.
that's what I was trying to get across. That his was had a greater impact than Cena, because Cena said he was going to turn heel last year. So for people who follow him, knew. Just my opinion. I just
In
don't
matter of
want.
fact, it was on Chris Van. How do you say it? It was on his actual podcast that he does that Cena came out with that. But definitely, I think Hogan's was a much better thing, because one, it changed WCW. It took WCW from being the number 2 company to the number 1 company. And anyone knows it's, what was it, 83 weeks? I think that's what they keep preaching, 83 or 84 weeks. I think it's 83 weeks that WCW beat WWE and almost put them out of business. But and also for the wrestlers, him turning heel got a lot of more people over, because there's a lot of NWO members that were mid-carders, like the Buff Bagwell, that really weren't doing much. And once they got in the NWO, then he became Buff the Stuff, and he had a lot more screen time. So there's a lot of more people that, DDP wouldn't have been born if it wasn't for the NWO. And we know how much DDP is. I think he was a 3-time heavyweight champion.
More than that, it allowed him to do his DDP yoga that's helped out a lot of people. And that would have never happened had, Hogan turn didn't happen. It's all cause and effect.
So
Put that screen guy on the map.
Say again, Bobby?
I said to put that Sting guy on the map.
Yeah, that Sting guy. Yeah. And his brother Kane. No.
Well,
Forget all the stuff he did with Flair before that. No one knew him before that.
well, see, that's the thing too. It was like a second-rate Southern Championship Wrestling. Not that mixing it with our logo, but back in the day, you had New York, and then you had the Southern promotion, and WCW was always the second to the. And honestly, WWE or WWF at any time has always been the number one company. Now you would have to go back into the 70s to say that the NWA was bigger than the WWF. Back then, of course, the NWA was nationwide, traveled all around the world, where WWF was only in the New York area. But
And then if they wanted to travel, they used the credentials and licensing of the NWA, so they could go to other regions.
But until Vince McMahon Jr. came around and pretty much took all the television rights from all the networks, took away from all the other independents, all the territories,
Smart move to build a business like that.
Well, you take away the way fans and people can see the other promotions, people only remember what they see. And if you take away NWA from the TV programs, you're going to turn into number one, and that's exactly what they did. And Scott Steiner even talked about that in that podcast. But yeah, I definitely say that Hulk Hogan's turn was a lot better than Cena. Now, we're going to talk about Cena for the next year or so until he retires. And then they're going to throw highlight clips, and they're going to throw, videos about it like a year from now about, oh, do you remember when Cena, turned? So there will be some hype, but nothing like Hogan's turn.
All right, let's get into May 16th and 17th because we're going to use this to go into the next topic.
All right. Well, I don't know if I want to talk about this first or talk about the show that we got coming up in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Or matter of fact,
let's
even
take,
in
let's
3
take a vote.
weeks.
No.
All right. So the one we got in 2 weeks, we'll just go on to SICW, our proud company here. So we know just a few matches that's going on. Kowalski's going to take on, forgot his name. God, I can't think of it.
Bobby
Oh, I
said
can
it last
picture
week,
him.
but I don't remember.
I say I can picture him. He's got the chain and all that.
Yeah. Well, Lilith Khan is going against that lady right there. I can't read it. Nightingale, was that her name?
That doesn't sound
I
right.
don't know.
On the card. Do you see?
No, she had like a flower in her name.
Yeah, there's no names on the Shriners poster.
Oh, damn! I can't believe that.
Oh no, you guys are in the super secret card group. You get all the matches. I don't.
I have no idea who I'm wrestling there.
I
I've
thought
got
we were
their title
professionals,
right
guys.
behind me, and I don't know who I got either. But yeah, so March 29th starts at 6 o'clock. So doors open at 5.
Gary Roosevelt Graham.
Gary, yeah, Roosevelt Graham. He's a great guy too. It's just that he's not a regular in our promotion. So I am horrible with names. I'm the first one to tell you that. But so you got to come around a lot more for the names to stick. But yeah, Mr. Graham is a very, very tough guy. I tagged with him too, just one time. And we were going against Attila Khan and Jake Prater. Very big match. It kind of led up to one of the matches that I had with Attila Khan at the first Fan Fest May show that I was able to get that title. But Yeah, so he's taking on Kowalski for the classic title, which I give him all the props if he can pull it off of Kowalski. You know, Kowalski's up to 450 pounds now, but he still moves like a cruiserweight. You know, I'm not saying you're gonna see him do a flip or anything, but you think a man of that size would be blown up a lot quicker than than he does. Um, so that's gonna be a great match.
And
Um,
I will be watching that one because I have a title shot on the 4th.
right.
So
Yeah. So
does that mean if Gary wins it, I go against Gary? Or does
I would
Kowalski do
imagine
the
so.
rematch first? Or
No, I would imagine you would get the next shot of whoever wins that match.
there it is. Kelsey Magnolia.
Magnolia.
I knew it had a flower in her name.
Yeah, so those two have got a little story behind them. You know, they once tagged at the last show, and of course, Lilith Khan doesn't tag with anyone that doesn't have the name Khan in the last name. So she beat up the two people that they were fighting, and then she beat up her own tag partner. Of course, we told stories about how she just got back from Japan. So I'm hoping that she's got some new tricks up her sleeve and can knock the 7-foot Lilith Khan on her butt. It'd be great. I'll be watching that one too, just to see how she handles it. But then again, like I said, you know, Bobby's got a match on that card. I've got a match on that card. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those matches get released because we don't know. Even though we work pretty close with SICW, you know, some things are just made to be kept secret and surprises the fans when they get there. It's also kind of what helps get the people in the door. Sometimes, you know, having the main event on the card helps get people in, but once they're in, then they get surprised and the shock and awe on what matches are put together. But yeah, so we got that, like I said, March 29th. And then was it April the 4th, you said?
Mm-hmm.
April the 4th. You know, that is going to be a great show too, because that's when the top guns go against each other. You got Joey versus Brandon. You know, this is
Why is it on a Friday?
It must be the 5th. Yeah, sorry. There's the poster. April 5th. I mixed it up.
there we go. Scratch that, ladies and gentlemen. April 5th. And that one's back at the
Well,
Belleclaire Fairgrounds.
if
You
Nate
know,
was prepared, he'd have this poster on the screen right now. And it says it really big on there.
That is true. That is true. I was doing massive amounts of pictures.
yeah, I sent him a bunch of pictures last minute just to throw some stuff together. But yeah, so Brandon versus Joey, it's going to be very interesting because the were tag team champions together. They started from the very beginning with each other, you know, from the Ace Academy. It's always been those two. They seem to click. But as of late, they're not seeing eye to eye. You know, I don't know if it's due to Brandon going to all these other promotions and working singly and not wanting to do a tag again. But I'm pretty sure Joey tried to save Brandon at the last show. So I don't know what erupted. There we go. There's the flyer right there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And of
Well,
course,
it's probably a lot of Brandon's success all around the country lately. I'm sure he's gotten a lot of arrogance to him.
yeah, I would say some people have told me that it's probably because he's got a big head now from going to all these other promotions and working for the NWA and working for Ohio Valley. You
I
never
mean,
know.
let's be honest. His head was always big.
Well,
I don't
that's
know. When he called after the last match, when he called me, he goes, "Hey, give me my damn footage."
yeah. So maybe he's
So
changing.
could be.
But if you scroll down to the bottom of that flyer, we got a double main event, which is Kowalski or Graham, depending on who wins, at the Shriners against our own Bobby D. So, I mean, you guys worked each other plenty of time, so I'm hoping that it stays, I wouldn't say clean cut, but with no outside interference. Now, the picture does show Lucky P there standing next to him, so you will probably have to work
say,
around him.
I haven't. So Kowalski and I have a long history, but I've never had a Lucky P Larson problem with my Kowalski problem. So that's a whole nother wrinkle in the plans. But I hold a pinfall victory over him after the last show, and I'm ready for my title shot now.
Well, I'll tell you just a little scenario when I faced Kowalski. Lucky P was handcuffed to the ring, but still managed to interfere because he brought that tire iron with him, which allowed Kowalski to get a hold of that and smack me a good one with that. So even if he's tied up, that guy can still find a way to interfere somehow.
So, Bobby, when you beat him on the foot, you need to take the little pizza cup too.
Oh, I will. I might shove it where the sun don't shine, but I'll have it for a moment.
Be fun either way, yeah.
That works for me.
So, Herb released that Buff Bagwell's coming back to the Fan Fest, yeah?
I did not know that. That is breaking news, huh?
Yeah. So Buff will be back. Hopefully him and I will get along better this time, yeah?
Well,
overall, he's a nice guy. It's just, it was a bad day for everybody, and we just didn't get along.
yeah, and we spoke about that me and Bobby had another show with Buff on it, and it turned out really good. He was a great guy. Like I said, everyone has a bad day, and he was awesome that night. And to top it off, he even gave Glenn Williams a nice punch that knocked him out. And I just kind of wish he would have got a hold of Sean Vincent too at the same night, but he did get a hold of Glenn, so that was nice.
Yeah, I laughed at that a lot.
Well, finally someone shut him up because that night Glenn was running his mouth, and Buff, who technically was not allowed in the ring because he just had a hip replacement, should have never been in the ring, got in the ring, and shut up Glenn. So it was pretty damn good, I think.
He went in there just to talk, but sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
Right.
I've watched that footage 30, 40 times editing it, and I did not know that he had a hip replacement because his movement was fluid coming in and out of the
hip or a knee. Something, he had something done. Because even at the CAC, he was still walking with not a cast, but one of those, maybe he had something done to his knee. Because he had one of those braces on that go from the thigh down below the knee, you know. And most of the time, he even had crutches. But yeah, definitely very cool that Buff is coming back. So let's hit it. Let's do that, mate. Go ahead and show that May Fest. There we go. Man, this
we have
is
Kevin Von Erich, Buff, Brutus, Gringle. Ivan is going into the Hall of Fame, which you're going to talk about in a bit. We have Tony Atlas. We have Tony Santana. Rock and Roll Express, are they coming back?
Rock and Roll is coming back. I didn't know. I don't think Tony Atlas is in there.
I would say he's not on that picture.
And it's
No,
Tito
not on that
Santana.
Yeah, that's. Well, yeah, Tito's right there, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, I can't see the picture, but you said Ricky Santana.
I meant to say Teddy Long.
Teddy Long. There you go. We're throwing out misinformation all night tonight.
Hey, Teddy, if you're watching this, you can give me a lecture in May.
Yeah.
He won't.
Anyway, so the Mayfest, there's still rooms at the hotel that you guys can pick up if you guys are interested in coming out. You know, it's a Friday, Saturday. Friday we're gonna do that stories from the legends. So that's gonna be very cool to listen to that.
You remember his name?
What was that?
Do you remember his name?
Bill is going to be the one that's hosting it. But yeah, so he's going to host it Friday night. There's going to be some legends that's going to come in and just do that part. And it's going to be very cool because I think that's the funnest part is listening to these guys tell their stories. Because a lot of them would not tell stories like this beforehand because they kept everything to themselves. But now this you know, everyone is getting out and starting to do these fans fests. So now they're kind of opening up, kind of like how the Undertaker finally retired, and now he's opening up and telling his stories. So it's very cool. And then of course Saturday we'll do the meet and greets, we'll do the Hall of Fame, and then we'll do the wrestling show. But that leads us to to the Russian Bear. Now, the reason why, besides him going into the Hall of Fame, I was supposed to have a box come in today. According to eBay, it was supposed to be delivered today, and it was going to complete one of my figures, which is Nikita Koloff. Oops, did I get that right? Volkov. Nikolai Volkov. Man, these Russians really get me crazy. Nikolai Volkov. I even butchered it again. No, I did get it right. Nikolai Volkov. So what it was supposed to be a package with miscellaneous stuff. You know, it wasn't going to be an LJN. Well, it actually does have an LJN figure in it. But it was this mixed match of stuff. But it was one of them was going to be the hat that he always wore that came with this figure. So I thought, hell, since I'm going to get that today, you know, we'll talk about how it finishes off my LJN, and then we can lean into Mr. Ivan. So I wanted to talk about Ivan because Ivan's going into the Hall of Fame this year. And Nikita is the one that's actually inducting him into the Hall of Fame. But Ivan Koloff, we're inducting him because in the 60s and mid 70s, St. Louis was a stop for him. You know, in St. Louis, he was able to wrestle people like Terry Funk. He wrestled, I got a small little list here. Let's see here. Jerry Briscoe, Bruno Sammartino, Dusty Rhodes, Joe Blanchard, which is, you know, all the father for, was it Terry Blanchard?
Tully
Blanchard. Of course, we talked about Tully's daughter not too long ago.
Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla. Tessa.
She's all electric.
But so I want to just talk about him. You know, not that he has a claim to fame to St. Louis, but he's got an historic wrestling career. You know, like I said, in the NWA, you never made it big until you came to St. Louis, worked for Sam Mushnick. I mean, he started his wrestling career like early 60s, like 63, 64. And one of his first stops was St. Louis. And then from there, you know, he worked AWA. He worked for the WWF. Came back and worked for the WWF. Worked in the WCW. I mean, this guy is definitely a legend. He's also a legend in the way that when you talk about the WWF, always got to talk about Bruno Sammartino. This guy had a legendary career, and he had an 8-year winning streak, which is unheard of. He was the champion for 8 years until he wrestled him, and he was able to beat Bruno Sammartino in Madison Square Garden, which was basically, they always claim it was the house that Bruno built, because he was able to headline so many matches, so many sold out matches or cards in that building. And for him to defeat Bruno was just historic. A couple other things. So he was the third wrestler to ever hold the WWF title, beating Bruno. Kind of sucks. His title reign was only for about a month, 21 days to be exact, because he lost to Pedro Morales. But even when Bruno came back and became the champion again, he came back and started trying to wrestle him, and he actually had the first ever steel cage match at Madison Square Garden with Bruno. He was not the victor that night, but that's cool. One of those, things that you don't know until you start researching this stuff. Madison Square Garden was always the center for Vince McMahon's seniors territory. They did go to New York and New Jersey and all those small towns around, but Madison Square Garden is where everything major happened. And for him to be in the very first steel cage match, and we just had a steel cage match Monday on Monday Night Raw, so the historic value on that alone.
I guess I'm spoiled with steel cage matches from Bobby, but I expected blood on Monday and got none.
Now he was the NWA World Tag Team Champion on 4 occasions. Twice was with his nephew Nikita. But
the other nephew?
The other nephew, I can't pronounce his name. You're going to have to pronounce his name.
Buster Khrushchev.
Yeah, there was only 4 main Russians that went around and wrestled. And those were the 4 right there. But his nephew, Nikita Koloff, like I said, he won twice the NWA World Tag Team Championships with them. He had such great feuds with Bruno. That was his main thing. But Nikita, his main feud was with Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA and Road Warriors, Rock and Roll Express. Now, I'm kind of putting them both together here for a second. Ivan went into the CAC. They awarded him all my stuff is all wrapped around. Okay, so that's Nikita. All right, so Ivan went into the CAC, the California Hourly Club. They honored him in 2013, gave him the Mike Mascuri Award. That was the same one that Sting won last year. How do you pronounce it? The Mazurki? Okay, like I said, I am bad with names. George Tragus, Luthez Hall of Fame, honored him in 2009, gave him the Frank Gotch Award. But this gentleman wrestled for Maple Leaf Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Unfortunately, he wrestled for Puerto Rico too, which is the World Wrestling Council. And I say unfortunately because, of course, that's where Bruiser Brody died, working for that company. But Nikolai, sorry. Like I said, these Russians, man, whew. All right, so he had, championships and all the other small promotions before working for WCW. Florida Championship Wrestling. He's wrestled pretty much he never made it up to the WWF. And I think that's the only thing that really hurt him. Because, again, WWF was number one. But he did wrestle for WCW. And, of course, he is going to be the one that's going to induct Ivan into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. One of his biggest feuds was with Magnum TA. Magnum was the NWA United States champion, and he was able to beat him for it. And then he wrestled Wahoo McDaniel, who was also the NWA National Heavyweight Champion, and he was able to unify the belts, which is very cool. The United States and the National Heavyweight Champion. So, NWA, they worked it where, you had the United States, you had the National, and then you had the World title. He never made it up to the World title. He did have a lot of matches with Ric Flair. He was just never the victor and never was able to actually win the belt. Now, he did have a babyface turn, so he kind of went against Ivan and his Ivan's other nephew. Dusty, actually, he came out and helped Dusty take on Ole Anderson and J.J. Dillon in a cage match. Dusty didn't have a partner at the time, and Nikita came and helped Dusty, which the fans, of course, they've always been behind Dusty Rhodes. And so when he came out to help Dusty, that pretty much just turned him just like that. And after that, that's when he started feuding with Ric Flair. He was also George Tragus and Lou Thez Hall of Fame, inducted him in 2006, also for the Frank Gotcha Award. These guys, we always talk about how the heels back in the days, like Roddy Piper, and we talked about Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. When they were heels, legitimately people tried to kill these guys. They would, pop the air in their tires. They would break the windshields. They would do everything because it was so real to everyone back in the day that, if you beat up a baby face like a Magnum TA, everyone was totally against you and they wanted to hurt you just as bad, So these guys being Russians, and being back in the Cold War area, the time frame for that. And everyone knew that, it was Germany and Russia that we had to watch out for. So these guys, yeah. So these guys had the best characters and the worst characters at the same time, because everyone wanted to cheer for USA whenever they fought a Russian, but like I said, also the worst because they got so much heat because they were Russians, that it was just so dramatic. So I want to circle back to Nikolai Volkov. Now, Nikolai and Ivan Koloff, they were actually tag team champions in Florida for the NWA. So all these guys played a power, in wrestling. They had a big storyline in every promotion that they ever went to. But Nikolai, let's see, he was a two-time tag team, WF tag team champion, once with the Iron Sheik, feuded with Bruno at the same time that Ivan was. It was funny because Nikolai went to the WWF at the time and was wrestling Bruno, trying to get that strap. And then Ivan, Nikolai left. Ivan came back. Ivan was able to win the belt. Then he lost the belt. Then he left WWF. and then Nikolai came back, and it was, it's just a big mixture of everything. But he worked for the AWA, he worked for New Japan, he worked for All Japan, and he had pretty much a long career with WWF, off and on, because he was wrestling against Bruno in '74, and then left. Then came back in '84, and then left, and then came back in '85, where he won the second title that he won with the Iron Sheik for the tag team championships. And then he started wrestling against Hulk Hogan because he was the baddest heel at the time. So you had Hogan versus the Russian, and this when he started wrestling Hulk Hogan, that's when he started to do the what do you call it, their national anthem before every match. That drew a lot of heat too. But then he left then again, and then he came back in '86, and then left again, came back in the '90s, and had a babyface turn. And it was so weird because Sergeant Slaughter always was, all American. He was always the good guy. And Iron Sheik came back and was able to convince Sergeant Slaughter to go heel, and they became a tag team. And then it was Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan for a long run. But Nikolai came back and, helped Hogan. So there was Hulk Hogan and Nikolai versus the Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter. So it was a big, it's kind of unheard of for two people, one being a face, one being a heel, and both of them switching at the same time. It was once done with Stone Cold and Bret Hart. That's the most notable one because Stone Cold was the heel, Bret Hart was the baby face, and then they wrestled each other, and Bret Hart, turned heel in that match and made Stone Cold turn baby because everyone hated Bret Hart so much. And it was an I Quit match. And Stone Cold got busted open. Bret Hart hit him with the ring bell, busted him open, bleeding so much. Matter of fact, Stone Cold had an awesome T-shirt that said Bloodstone on it. And it was one of my favorite matches. It was a match that actually got me back into wrestling because that was right around the time when the Attitude Era started. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. But throwing back, I can get way off on everything here.
And we're running late.
Okay. Well, I'll start to wrap it up here. In '05, WWE put Nikolai Volkov into the Hall of Fame. This is the main part that I wanted, and I'm going to read this to you. So Nikolai retired, and he wasn't doing a lot of independent shows. He retired. But on March 21st, 2015, it's funny that we're in March, Volkov participated at a SICW event taking place on East Crondelet. It says on East Crondelet, even though it should be in East Crondelet. Volkov managed and mentored the team of younger wrestlers Ricky Cruz and Red River Jack, while also managing veteran wrestler Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. to take on the team of Chris Hargis, Bull Bronson, and Attila Khan. So there was only a couple other shows that he did. He did one in Canada, and he did one in New Jersey. But before Nikolai Volkov passed away, he was actually able to come to an SICW show and manage a few of our wrestlers. And
I'll send you a picture, Nate. I got a picture of him holding Landon, my 14-year-old, when he was really small, in that locker room.
So it's just
Put that out
here. So Volkov and Orton appeared in their outfits and gimmicks from their WWF days. The team of Volkov and Orton and Cruz and Jack came up victorious. So I mean, it's a full circle. You have Ivan wrestling in St. Louis. You have him going up to WWF, winning the belt from Bruno, and that was something that Nikolai couldn't do. But then you had Ivan going down to WCW and NWA and working with Nikita. And then you have Ivan and Nikolai winning the tag straps in Florida. So it's a big circle thing. And then Nikolai coming back to SICW and putting on a show with us. So I mean, it's crazy, and it's so cool how SICW is able to bring in the legends, honor the legends. Unfortunately, this was right before he passed away. But in the same circle,
SICW's roots and thereby our roots go back to the original NWA and the St. Louis Wrestling Club anyway, and wrestling
right.
at the chair. So.
And this year, Ivan is going into the St. Louis Hall of Fame for the work that he did in the 60s and the 70s in St. Louis. And Nikita is the one that is going to induct him into the Hall of Fame. And when I was just working this whole thing, I was like, man, this is such a full circle moment that, so many connections to St. Louis, so many connections to SICW and Herb Simmons. And this is why I feel that SICW, hands down, is the best independent wrestling in this area, this region. We honor the legends. We, induct them into the St. Louis. There's only one St. Louis Hall of Fame that has the legends from wrestling at the Chase. I think I'm so proud of working for SICW, and I'm so proud for working with Herb Simmons because he lets us carry on wrestling like it used to be. He owns a wrestling company. He doesn't own an entertainment company, and I think that's such the big difference in the way he honors the legends. I mean, we got 5 or 6 legends going into the Hall of Fame this year. Greg the Hammer Valentine is one of them, and that's a legend that I was actually honored to work with before. It's so cool and so great to be working in St. Louis and working for a promoter, Herb Simmons and SICW. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think, like I said, we can wrap it up, but that full circle always ties to St. Louis, always ties to SICW. But I have no toys to talk about this time. So
I got a box.
We are going to let Bobby D handle the toys this time.
I was like, I don't do toys. Well, I do toys, but this is my mystery box. I got Jim's little guy Ricochet pin.
I really like Ricochet. I don't think he was used well in the WWE.
I got somebody that Sean Vincent would be proud of. Got the Monty. This is a repeat for me, but I got a patch of Coffin Drop. What's his name? Darby Allin.
Yeah, Darby.
Got a sticker of Freshly Squeezed.
He has got an awesome figure that just came out. It's not colored; it's black and white, and it looks really cool, and everyone's popping for it.
I say my poster is MJF and Moxley. And then I actually really like this shirt this time. FTR. Good old school tag team. Keeping it basic.
A nice retro looking shirt though.
Yeah,
that's it.
They're a throwback wrestling team. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson is what they pretty much will follow under,
Then I always forget this guy's name. My autograph this month.
Can't you read his autograph?
Squiggle, squiggle, circle.
Squiggle, squiggle. Yeah.
I know I've seen him. I Googled it once when I first got it. Wanted to say it was like the links is what it translates to or something.
We'll take a look real quick. These
Well,
are
I did
just a
like the
loop,
Google
right?
picture search, which I can't do with my phone recording the show.
Right. Hey, while you're looking that up, I'm just going to throw out there are some cool figures that are coming out done by the Major Bendies, or their version of the big rubber guys is what they call them. They have a new Haku figure that they are making in the LJN style, and they got a new Bruiser Brody figure that they're making also in the LJN style. So those are two figures that I'll be hunting down. They're doing pre-orders for them soon. But Collect Major is the website to go to actually get those pre-orders. And they also have a Harley race that I want to get. I haven't got it yet, but it just came out.
And you were right, Bobby. It is the links. It's Lent Dorado.
I thought he's been in AEW. Don't know if he's made it to WWE yet.
He did.
He did make it to WWE. Was the Cruiserweight Classic?
I'm just looking up his picture to see if it matched. Let's see.
I'm asking you questions now.
Let's see. Yep, cruiserweight division for 2 years, 16 through 18. And then after that, he went to Lucha House Party.
Lucha House Party, yeah. I remember those
And
guys.
then MLW and New Japan, Impact, and then came back to WWE in 2025, January 17th in the NXT event.
Do another shout out to the Major Figure Wrestling. Yeah, Major Figure Wrestling podcast. They had a show this weekend, podcast, and they talk about wrestling figures, and that's how I knew about the Bruiser Brody and the Haku. But they did like a short version where they went to a fan's house, and this fan collects nothing but lucha libre wrestlers and international wrestlers or international wrestling figures, and hands down the most valuable wrestler figure was over in Japan, and it's a Hulk Hogan. It's Hulk Hogan's very first action figure, and I mean it's worth thousands of dollars. And this guy had one, and was able to show it off, and he had it graded and everything. But very interesting because I'm not really big on knowing Mexican wrestlers' names and Japan wrestlers' names, but this is like his spot. He doesn't follow like WWE or AEW, but he follows Mexican wrestlers. And the second one was a Rey Mysterio. It was a AAA wrestling figure that very hard to get. And matter of fact, he had claimed that he had only seen two. Of course, he owns one of them now, but
Well, that's 2 more than I've seen.
right. But a very cool watch and to learn. I think the Hulk Hogan's was they were called the Poppy Wrestlers, and I showed a few of those when we came back from Vegas. I had the Bruiser Brody Poppy figure, but those were remakes where this guy had the originals, and so that was just crazy to see this. But I know we normally say this in the beginning, but Well, I always want to end it at least with thanking everyone, even the haters that come on and talking about the stuff that Nate was talking about in the beginning. We really just want to, we do this for fun. Uh, we're not making any money off of this stuff yet. And even if we do, we're still doing it for fun. So if we put a wrestling match out on there, it is what it is, man. We put it out there so you guys can watch it and enjoy some classic wrestling. It's what we are into, classic wrestlers, classic wrestling matches, and we just want to share the love. So for those who, come and watch the podcast and watch the wrestling matches, thank you. You know, can't complain about the jump that we had a few months ago where we just jumped up and hit a grand. We were struggling there for a while, and then all of a sudden you guys pulled through for us and really put us over the top. So please, if you like what you see, share it with your friends and family. We would love to get it bigger and better. There are some people that on the back burner that I would love to get on the podcast. But sometimes that requires a little bit more, like, unfortunately, sometimes money involved. And I get it. You're taking up a legend's time, and they want a little something for it, but we need to get more subscribers in order to be able to do this and known a little bit more wide versus just in the St. Louis regional area. So if we can get a little bit more mainstream, out there a little bit more and get some more followers behind our belt. Our next big number is 5,000. That will help us out in so much. So like I said, thank you for subscribing like you did. Thank you for watching the shows. But please, share it and help us out. But
And if you're in this area, come down to the wrestling shows. Couple hundred to 1,000 people show up, more the merrier.
yeah, and proud members of SICW Locker Room, but we do branch out. We do like to go to WLW. We do like to go to other shows and talk about them. Midwest Coalition is what we talked about the last couple of months, just because they're new and kind of partnering with them with SICW, kind of backing them. Help us out. We love to. Don't get me wrong. We love where we're at. We just want bigger and better things. And if we get there, we can do bigger and better things as well. So, you guys got anything else for this week?
I do not. I got another busy weekend of coaching some wrestling.
Perfect. All right.
In the next couple
Bobby,
weeks, wrestling.
wrestling. Guys, stick on after we end this. I just want to go over one thing with you guys. But from everyone at the Square Ring Podcast, thank you. And we'll see you next week. Yeah, have a good night.